Hello Internet and welcome to a new video tutorial. In this tutorial we're going to make advanced psychedelic glassy metallic percussions. I consider this video as the second part of the Tristan / Nano style psychedelic metallic percussions because they kind of shared some of the techniques. Plus, I've made a mistake in that video, and I'm really sorry for that I'm going to correct in this video. So, with that said, this video is a requested video from one of you guys, and we're going to use the reference track that was given to me to create the sounds that we're going to make in this tutorial. So let's listen to the track. The track is from Spectra Planet Species, and so we have this. So we're going to create these glassy percussions that we've just heard in the track. And what we're going to do is, as usual, we're not going to recreate them exactly the same because that's not the point of the tutorial. Plus, as far as I know, these sounds were created with an Access Virus TI. And this is not an Access Virus TI tutorial, but this is a SERUM and Pigments tutorial. So with that said, here's an initial patch of SERUM. I've already prepared a really simple pattern, just like so. Now, the basic idea behind this sound is a really fast burst of sound. It could be noise, or it could be an oscillator, it could be whatever. Preferably changing its pitch. That'll go to a no-pass filter or a comb filter, a filter that'll create peaks and dips in the frequencies. Then it'll go through a phaser, and this will give us the glassy sound. And then it'll go to a really, really fast delay that will give us the metallic part of the sound. So with that said, let's start with a noise oscillator in here. We're going to use the first noise that comes with the noise oscillator in SERUM, but we're going to modulate its pitch, and I'm going to modulate its pitch with a note on random. Now I'm not going to create my own sample and hold LFO in here. I just want it to be really simple, really quick, so that's why I'm going to use the note on random. Now we have this. As you can hear, it's changing its pitch. That's what we want. Now we're going to turn on the filter. We're going to set that the noise goes through the filter. And for this, I'm going to go to the flange category of filters in here. And I'm going to use the Comb Plus filter. I'm going to crank that resonance. I'm going to turn on the volume because now it's going to scream. Now we have this. And I'm going to modulate the frequency between, like this 200 hertz something till somewhere around 500 or so. So I'm going to set a note on random 2 in here, and I'm going to set it somewhere in here. Now we have this. Before adding any effects, I'm going just to add an EQ, and I'm going to take some of these nasty low frequencies, and now we have this. That's really great so far. Now I'm going to turn on our phaser. I'm going to take the depth all the way down because I don't want the internal LFO of the phaser to modulate the frequency, but I want it to get modulated with, you guessed it, note on random 1. And I'm going to leave it on bipolar, so it'll modulate in both directions. And I'm going to take this first LFO. I'm going to draw a really fast square wave. If you don't know how to do this, just press on Shift, and you can draw like this. Now I'm going to take off the BPM, crank that frequency up till something like 50, 45, 50 hertz, something like that. Make it modulate just a tiny bit the frequency of the phaser, crank that feed up, and now we have this. And now I'm just going to set the envelope, the VCA's envelope, to something really fast, no attack, tiny bit of release, tiny bit of decay, and now to get these bursts of sound, now we have this. I'll give the filter some drive and more feed from the phaser. And now what I'm going to do is I'll take a delay from Ableton, and I'll be using the delay from Ableton because it has this repitch algorithm in here. You can basically use whatever delay, but this delay with the repitch has the best character to it. So I'm sorry if you don't use Ableton, but I'm pretty sure you can get pretty much really close results with any other delay. So anyways, here's the mistake that I've made in the other video. Now I've wanted to sync the burst of sound, or like these percussions, to a note, and what I've made in that video is that I've set the delays time to the frequency of the note, which is wrong, because I should have used this equation in here, which is basically the delays time is 1 on the frequency of the note multiplied by 1000. So basically, if I'll go to the same site in here, and as I guess you've guessed it, we're always in F in my tutorials. So the frequency of F1 is 43.65 hertz. So according to this equation, what I'm going to do is 1000 for 3.65. I have to set my delay to 22.9 milliseconds, and the result should be in tune with F. So what we're going to do is I'm going to set the delay to time, and I'm going to set the delay time to 22.9, crank that feedback all the way up, and the dry wave to somewhere like 80, but you can play with that. And now we have this. Now we have some nasty high frequencies, and we can take some of them out with the delays filter in here. But if your delay doesn't have a filter in here, I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to use the second filter from SERUM. I'm going to set it to Moog 12 dB per octave. That's pretty good. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to modulate the cutoff with a really fast envelope. And with this, we're not going to completely lose the high frequencies, but we're going to attenuate them so much that they won't be a problem anymore. So now we have this. So without the filter, with the filter, and now I've set in here in my first send channel a really basic delay. I've even used SERUM for that, 1 on 8 dotted, classic ping pong. So I'll send my SERUM in here to that delay just to get normal delay, and now we have this. We can play with the decay to get variations of the sound, just like so. And now, with the kick and bass, we have this. For sure, we need to treat the sound with a little bit of EQ in here, just like so. I'm just going to use the EQ from Ableton. Now we have this. And I'm just going to give it some gain after from the EQ in here. So here's one technique to make it. Now I want to show you another technique. Now with this technique, we're going to turn off the noise oscillator in here. I'm going to turn off the filter for now, and I'm going to take the first oscillator. But what I'm going to do is I'll go to the analog wavetables in here. I'll just take the basic shapes just to get a sine wave like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'll set it to sync, no window, and I'm going to crank that sync up to get something like a wave folded sine wave. Now why I'm doing so, I'll show you in a bit, but the idea is pretty simple. With a normal saw wave, we'll get some nasty high frequencies that I really don't like. It's like some distorted, weird high frequencies, and with this technique we're going to get around it, and we won't get these nasty frequencies. But you can use actually whatever you like. You can play with it and find your own wave, but this is something like really fast that can get the results that I have in mind like really quickly and really easy. And again, now for the filter, I'm going to leave the modulation the way it is. I'll take off the resonance, but for this filter I'm going to use the phase 48 plus, basically a phaser. I'm going to crank that resonance a bit, and now we have this. Oh, now we have this. I'll just ask the note on random in here to modulate all the way up. Maybe a bit less than all the way up. So if I'll turn on the phaser, the EQ and the filter, this is the sound that we will get. Now listen, if I'll use a normal saw wave, this is the sound that we'll get. But with the wave folded sine wave that I've just created, we'll get this. See in here, there's too much like nasty high frequencies that are kind of distorted, and I really don't like that. So I'm going to keep this wave folded sine wave. And I'll turn on the phaser, exactly the same modulation, random node on the frequency, and a really fast LFO modulating just a tiny bit the frequency. Really fast burst of sound. The same filter, I didn't change it. It's just actually what changes is the filter that we're using and the oscillator. And now we have this. I'll just take off the drive from this filter in here. I'll return on this equalizer. I'll just turn off this third point that we had in here. And now with the kick and bass, we have this. Again, you can play with the decay to get different results. But as I've already said, the faster it is, the better. And that's pretty much it for the techniques in Serum. Now I'm going to show you some different techniques, but in pigments. Now for this, I'll just take the same pattern here. I'll choose, a normal initial patch in here. I'll choose the saw wave, or you know what? I'll leave it on a sine wave in here, and I'm going to wave fold it. So we'll get this. Now, what I'm going to do with this technique and why it's different is because I'm going to use the sequencer of pigments to my advantage to get some other random modulation. I'll show you in a bit. So first of all, I'm just going to use legato notes like so. And I'll go to pigments in here. What I'm going to do, I'll turn on the sequencer. I'll set the gate to 1/16. So we have this. Now, in here we have the randomizing, let's say, module of pigments, and I'm going to set it to half a bar. So every half a bar, every randomized lane in here is going to get re-randomized. And so what I'm going to do is I'll crank the randomization fader in here for the pitch. So we have this. And I'll do the same for the octaves. What I'm going to do is I'll even set it to 1/4 of a bar. Great. Now, for this technique to work, I'll just give it some more wave folding. For this technique to work, I'm going to use a formant filter because the formant filter will give us, by definition, peaks and dips in the sound. Peaks and dips in the sound. Now, I'll crank that Q factor all the way up so the peaks are really accentuated. I'll turn off the blend because I don't want any of the original signal going out from the filter. And I'll take the first random generator in here. I'll make it modulate the frequency. I'll set the random generator to 1/16 and I'll set it to mono keyboard. And now we have this. And now again, I'm going to go to my effects section in here. I'll take a phaser. But what I really love about the phaser of pigments is that first of all, the internal LFO can be set to sample and hold. So we don't have to use an external sample and hold. I'll set the LFO modulation amount to 100. I'll set the rate of LFO to 1/16. And again, I'll take an LFO in here. I'll make it modulate the frequency of the phaser just a tiny bit. And I'll set this LFO to a square. And I'll crank that frequency up to like something like 50 hertz or something. I'll leave it on free running. I'll crank that feedback all the way up. And now we have this. And for sure, the envelope VCA, no attack, no sustain, no release, just a tiny bit of decay. And I'll take off some of these nasty high frequencies with a normal high-pass filter. Now we have this, and I'll take the same delay that I've set to SERUM. I'll put it in here, and now we have this. And again, I'll send it to my delay channel in here. And what I'm going to do is now, with a kick and bass, we'll get this. For sure, in these kind of leads, you're going to make like random sequences, then you're going to export them in wave, and you're going to like to set your samples the way it is, because you know they're random leads, and you're not going to make them like play random sequences the whole time you're working on the track. So now we have this. Now, I'm going to show you another technique. If you want to get really, really adventurous with this technique, I'm going to turn off this formant filter. I'm going to set it to multi-mode, and I'm going to set it to a bandpass 24 dB per octave. I'm going to set it to around 200 hertz. I'll crank that resonance up. But now what I'm going to do is I'll use the second filter in parallel mode. So the output will be 50-50 to both filters, and the filter routing is on parallel. Again, bandpass 24 dB per octave. I'll crank that resonance, and what I'm going to do is I'll modulate the filters with the same random generator, but actually they're going to get modulated the opposite way. So the first filter from low frequencies to high frequencies, and the second filter from high frequencies to low frequencies, and this will give us results like that. I'll just turn off the phaser and the filter in here. I'll take the first random generator, turn off this one, crank it like that, and like so, and now we have this. And now with the phaser we have, and the filter in here, we have this. For sure, after making the sound design, there's a lot of work in the EQ to get all of these like peaks that hurts the ears out of it, but we're not going to do that because this is not the point of this tutorial. I just wanted to show you this, and now with the kick and bass we can have this. And that's pretty much it. These are the techniques I've wanted to show you. As I've already said, we are not going to replicate exactly the same sound, but something similar. So I really hope you've liked it. I really hope you've loved these techniques. I would really encourage you to play with these techniques because you can get even closer results using them. So I really hope you've learned something new, and I really hope you've liked it. Have a great day.